Hi everyone, I'm super excited to host Shreesha Ramdas, CEO and co-founder of LumberFi. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thank you, Mayur. It's a pleasure to be here. I can't wait to get started.
Amazing. Shreesha, take us back to your college days and till this date. What would be your top three highlights of the career?
So, I would say the major highlight is obviously starting the companies that I've done. That because in a startup all the forces are against you, right? You cannot match the resources, the money that an existing player or an incumbent has, right? And you do not have the brand, and you're starting from the scratch, and so you have to literally move a mountain to make a startup work. And so every startup has been a learning experience for me, which has an incredible, like I have developed incredible amount of patience over the different startups that I've done. The second highlight I would say is, like, over the years, I have truly bonded, felt oneness with all the founders I've interacted with. And it's immense learning for myself in understanding how they're approaching the problem, how they're solving the challenges. What you have done in past is history. And in order to be in present, you have to be always be improving and learning. And founders will keep you on your toes in terms of the learning that can happen. So I would say that those two are the incredible source of inspiration for me, apart from in general the problem solving that life brings to you.
In the startup journey, I always feel founders has various bottlenecks, which each different stage of growth, they have to learn those skill set to cross that threshold, be it sales, be it like growth, hiring. So for you, what were the difficult things you learned the hard way?
Yeah. So I will answer it in two different ways. So one evolution is definitely the functional evolution, which is most of us who are immigrants, we all start from engineering. We are engineering driven. You have an engineering driven mindset and you're completely engrossed in how do I architect the product better? How do I engineer the product in a better way? And I was no different. I still remember as an engineering leader, I used to curse the sales guys because they would bring in customers with different requirement and impose the customization piece to us. So from there, getting to understand that in order to become a true founder, in order to become an entrepreneur who can bring different companies to light, you have to understand the sales and marketing aspect of it. And then I actually put myself in a difficult position where I said, like, after being an engineering person for many years, I said, I'm going to learn sales from scratch. And scratch meant actually cold calling, right? Starting from cold calling, which as an engineer was incredibly difficult. I still remember the first sales call that I made. I was praying that it hits the voicemail. So the evolution in sales world happened from there, then evolving to where I understand the importance of go to market, right? So when I say go to market, I mean understanding the marketing aspect of it. Brand building does not come naturally to an engineering background person. So you have to understand the importance of storytelling in painting that vision in that leads to that brand building. And then understanding the finance function, where you have to understand just raising capital is not enough. Putting that capital to good use is important. And you cannot think about in a linear fashion. You may have to think about inorganic ways of growing, right? Which could be acquisition. So understanding that financial implications of that, that's a whole different evolution. And then from a different lens, Mayur, the evolution of a startup, you have to think about, I call it as a fitness journey. So you start with problem fit. How big is the problem? Do I have capabilities to solve that problem? Then you evolve to market fit. Where is the TAM big enough to build a large company? Then you evolve to product market fit. The product that I've built, is it resonating with the market? Then you take it to go to market fit. The product that I have built that customers want, am I positioning it? I'm messaging it in the right way that customers appreciate it. And then the final destination, I call it scale fit. Am I scaling it well? Does pushing the product out feel like you're putting in enormous effort? If it feels that way, then you have to think start thinking about exit. Those are the two different ways I think the evolution of startup happens.
I really like the framework, and a lot of people talk about the GTM and product market fit, but the problem fit, like, very interesting way to think about it. What is something in your founder journey you haven't done and you're excited to uncover or finish that challenge?
Yeah, I will tell you what's top of my mind right now, Mayur. So I'm really intrigued by the AI roll-ups that people are doing, which is a concept pioneered by General Catalyst, where they took healthcare, right? They actually acquired an hospital, then completely revamped the back office, then rolling up other hospitals, and then pushing the outcome that technology can drive. In our own construction world, Mayur, KP Reddy just announced Zero RFI, where they are rolling owner's rep. And I'm really excited to collaborate with KP, and I decided to have sort of a front seat to this KP's journey because I'm intrigued by that. So I would love at Lumber to get an opportunity to do meaningful roll ups that will move the construction industry forward.
And I want to do a bit deeper dive in, like, how does, like, let's say a founder think about it? Okay, there's a big market out there, and there might be like seed funded or Series A funded founder listening. Roll-ups might require a bit capital to function. But if they are uh, tight on resources and capital, can they still take a part on this journey?
No, roll ups will require capitalization. And so you have to raise additional capital to do roll ups. But remember, if you are acquiring a company with revenue, and then you can paint the picture of how that additional revenue will get added to your revenue, and then that'll drive compounding growth, then based on that pitch, you can actually raise capital to go and go on an acquisition spree. But definitely without capital, you cannot acquire. And even in lumber journey, if I have to give example, right now we have sort of hired couple of companies. We have acquired one company more from the IP and more from the the direction perspective. It's less about revenue. The next evolution of lumber, I would definitely like to go and acquire revenue companies. And where I'm coming from that perspective, Mayur, is like in construction, there are a lot of companies where folks from the industry have started the company because they saw a problem and they said, if I feel this problem, then there are other construction folks seeing this problem. But then they don't have development expertise, they don't have go to market expertise. So they go to some revenue level and then they stagnate. And so I believe that construction industry has got several those opportunities where you can actually acquire those companies. And we as Lumber, we are AI native, AI first company. We can bring in that technology angle and make sure that there is a non-linear growth, right? There is truly an explosive growth ahead.
That's so exciting. Like, the possibilities become so massive, even to
Uh,
leave an impact when you do. But acquisition is like such a risky bet. How do you mentally prepare, like for the framework from your past experience on acquisition for hiring till your future for revenue? How do one prepare for this?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Mayur. So as a founder, I have evolved over years. I remember in my first startup, it would be I would go deep into one problem and do, rest everything is noise. I was also at that age where I would feel I'm inevitable, right? I need to be in the center of every workflow, every issue that's happening with the company. And so at that time, acquisition was far away thinking, right? It was not in my even in my rear view mirror. But from there, I think I've evolved to now where I've understood the value of the team, and then I have started thinking about non-linear growth patterns. I started to think about like your mind, your basic human mind, we can comprehend linear patterns in a much more easier way than understanding exponential patterns. You have to apply to think in those ways. And that's where at Lumber, right from the word go, I've been thinking about how do we leverage different tactics that people have used to scale incredibly well. One is on talent hiring, right? So equi hiring, especially people who have been founders themselves. So they bring in founder mindset. They bring in that ownership to the table that you generally won't find. That's been one way I've been growing the Lumber management team. And then second is basically thinking about how you can look at adjacent areas, and instead of jumping and trying to build the product there, can you actually acquire a revenue based company there where you're bringing in years of experience of solving that pain and also bringing in revenue, and then using that again, as I mentioned, to driving exponential growth.
That makes me wonder, like bringing people with high agency from different background and culture. How do you unify then the company culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Mayur, I would say that as a leader, the areas where I spend time, one is the culture. And and doing different companies, I've realized, Mayur, that it's very important to codify the culture. Otherwise, culture will be an abstract term for all of the employees. And so the way we have codified at Lumber is we call it EOE, which is the first alphabet, which is an acronym which where the first alphabet E stands for energy, bring optimism, bring high proactiveness, and bring a lot of energy to the table. Second alphabet O stands for ownership, bring the ownership mindset to the table. And the last alphabet E is experimentation. Be bold, be aggressive in running experiments, and then let the data from the experiments guide you, right? Now you can see why I'm in love with the founder mindset. And so uh, at Lumber, early on, I tried to get a lot of the folks from MIT, from Stanford, from Berkeley over at Lumber because the problem solving comes naturally to a lot of these folks, right? So people who have high amount of intellectual horsepower, they should be part of the team. The second area where I've tapped into is a lot of folks who have been in either in VC firms or have been an analyst before. They again bring in tremendous problem solving skills to the table again, right? So those have been really hit. And then the third area is like people who have been founders before, and for some reason, either lack of timing or exposure, they have not done well. Do not hold it against them, but they understand how difficult it is to build a startup, right? So they have that urgency in them. And then, again, the founder mindset is urgency and thinking about first principles that cannot be matched. So that's how we have been looking at, like, how do we go about talent, bringing talent in.
I feel like that codifying culture part, we need like a book from Shreesha or a blog post because it's such a deep topic in itself on how do you craft, and it's an evolutionary like practice because being a founder myself, I can also imagine like there's a high agency, but if I have like other founders, then how do we also align on it, like bringing alignment, and there could be also ego issues, like okay, how do we navigate that? So it's a tough problem in itself.
Yeah. So just to comment on that, you talked about a good point is like, how do you get team aligned, right? So if you have to, as a founder, if you have to put in a lot of effort in team alignment, then the startup is not doing well, Mayur, because you're not hired the right people. And there is already a lot of politics involved in the organization. So you have to bring in, that's why your hiring right is really important. And once you have hired the people, the right culture, mindset in your organization, then at every forum possible, which is in your all hands, in every meeting, you have to reiterate, the importance of culture. You have to reiterate the importance of moving fast. You also, and in this day and age, I really believe that you have to emphasize that you're not built in the traditional hierarchical way. It's a flat organization. In this age of AI, the middle management layer, I think, is going to disappear. And so as a founder, you have to embrace it now, and so that will ensure that everybody is aligned in the right direction.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. Since you're at the forefront, you're thinking and making the company AI native. What are your hot takes on like the future of work, like 3 years from now? What's a dynamic you're foreseeing, which a lot of people are not comprehending the change that's coming?
Yeah, so 3 years from now is big time period, Mayur. Like things are changing so fast right now. I thought where AI models are right now, I thought it would be about 2 years before they get to that stage. And I'm saying this from my personal experience. Like I think 6 months ago, I would talk to best of the engineers and ask them about codes generated by the models, and their response would be, yeah, it's verbose, it's not elegantly written. Compared to now, the best of the engineers are saying that the models are producing code that's as good as that they write. And so that progress, I was thinking it'll come in about a year or two, but it's here. right now. So that's why the progress is happening at an incredible level. There are few things that I'm absolutely convinced that's going to happen in future. One is a rise of this category called product builders. So product management, product engineering, product designers, as we know, I think are going to vanish. There's going to be less of that. What it gives opportunity to people doing all three is that they can become product builders. So each of them can own the vision, the development, the design of the product, and what they will be responsible for is delivering outcomes directly to the customer. So the folks who consider this exciting and embrace it will do incredibly well. The folks who do not, who want to continue doing what they are doing, will perish, unfortunately. So that's one thing that I'm absolutely convinced. And within Lumber, I've been talking to every product manager, every product engineering person, every product designer, saying this is your time, embrace this change and move fast. And at Lumber, we are allowing you to experiment. Nothing is stopping you, right? So you take the ball and run with it, right? Do not wait for instructions to be handed over to do things in a certain way. That's one. Second is the cost of development is going to be zero, as you know. There's cost to maintain. So I feel that every startup company will be forced to think about what is their moat, right? And I'm borrowing this phrase from another founder friend, and I really liked, who said the three big moats will be brain to brain, heart to heart, and physical, right? So I think what each of these mean could be another podcast, Mayur, but I'll spare it. But those are the so what's your moat? Every startup will be forced to question themselves. So that's another thing. The third thing that I think will happen is all the startup companies that raised capital 7 years ago or 8 years ago will be caught in a no man's land. So a lot of the acquisitions that are happening, the companies that were started more than a decade a year ago and have solid customers, they'll get acquired. The startups that recently started in last 2 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years, they are more AI native than ever before. And if they do great job on their technology, they will get acquired. The companies that unfortunately started 7 8 years ago, they cannot. Their technology is built in an old-fashioned way, and they have still not matured to have decent enough of customers that they have that intrinsic value. So anyway, those are my thoughts about how things are evolving.
Definitely like food for thought. Like I didn't think about that the 7 year period because they're also trying for IPO and then the market is moving so fast. It's gonna be difficult. I wanna talk about your inspiration of starting LumberFi and you're coming from non-construction background to this. And what were the initial days? How were you learning about the industry and came to this idea?
Yeah, so Mayur, again, consider myself truly blessed to be doing lumber and to be serving construction industry. That's how I feel. I think I've always admired people who have been building with their hands, right? Every time I stand before Golden Gate Great Bridge, I marvel at in those times how was it built and the effort that went into it. So I think that's the reason why I'm glad that I'm in construction industry and doing what I'm doing. Now, how that evolution happened is basically my last startup I sold to Medallia, and I was fortunate to be part of the the team back then when the company was going public, and I got an opportunity there in some ways to be mentored by the CEO of Medallia. So he's an inspirational figure, and an immigrant himself who came and took Medallia public. And so there was a strong desire in me at that time, Mayur, to think about, like, I've built companies, sold companies before, but now I want to leave a legacy. I want to build a generational company, and I want to have this journey of taking a small startup to big outcomes. And I also felt that I'm done with the technology vertical, like serving the technology vertical, because my last two startups were marketing automation and customer success that was consumed by software technology companies. And then I was thinking about, where do I go next? And one thing I was very clear, I want to solve a big problem that will result in an industry moving ahead. And this is where I was fortunate to Atul from DPR Construction. And he's the one who inspired me to take a look at construction. And then I went deeper and more into the industry problems. The more I feel I felt actually that the whole workers problem, right? Recruiting and retaining skilled craft workforce is a massive, massive problem. It resonated with me, and I felt like this would be a lifelong worth of work to go and solve this problem, and the industry will be better off if we solve the problem. And so that drove the inspiration of jumping into the construction industry.
If we analyze the lumber's journey from the framework you shared before, problem fit, market fit, what would be the timeline for these things for your lumber's journey? How many months to discover early customers and
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Lumber was started with big vision and big ambition. With all my, generally when you start a startup, most of the founders are thinking about survival. And in Lumber's case, we were thinking about what's the big goal, audacious goal that we are going to hit right from the start. The survival was not in question, right? Was not in our minds. And so the reason that's important is right from the word go, speed has been a key mantra at Lumber, right? Everything we have to do with amazing velocity, and we should be at a milestone faster than any other startup. And so, right from the word go, Mayur, I've been doing contrarian things to how startups are built. So, I hired my sales guy, sales leader before even we built, any product, before we had written any line of code, before we had hired our engineer. And the reason I hired the sales leader before anything was built was because usually founders, the way they sign up the design customers is through their network. But then the problem with that is you get biased feedback because you already know those people and they will tell you what you want to hear. I wanted unbiased feedback from the market. So my sales leader started his career as a carpenter. And so he was very familiar with how the industry worked, and he was fearless in approaching the construction firms and getting the actual feedback back to me. So there was a sales. So how many companies would hire a sales leader on day zero, Mayur? So that's why I'm saying, like, right from the word go, Lumber was built with velocity in mind. And so in first 6 months, we built a product and we were hitting the market in for 6 months. And that too, not a simple product, as complex as payroll. If you can ask anybody in the industry, payroll is one of the most complicated piece of software to be built because of the amazing amount of permutation combination, because of the non-standardization, not only in the construction industry, but beyond. This is the reason why ADP has survived 30 years, is because they are able to run payroll in a stable way, and people appreciate that. So we built the product, launched the product, and then, our customer count started increasing at a tremendous rate. And now we are at serious scale within less than 3 years of journey.
this is such a unique data and insight of hiring sales leader for the velocity. I think other founders like me would find this super useful, like as they're planning for growth. Any like Paul Graham's advice of doing things that don't scale that was part of the journey at Lumber?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, so big fan of Paul Graham. And I would say it took me many years and many startups to comprehend what he meant. And more importantly, be brave and be aggressive with that mindset. And I'm saying this, Mayur, because you will understand this. We are not taught risk when we were growing up, right? We were asked to be careful with every step we take. That's the mindset we come. So to understand, that's why I said, like, to understand Paul Graham's thinking, it took me many years. And today, uh, you know, the way I've structured Lumber is my management team is running Lumber. I'm not involved in day-to-day operations of Lumber. I'm thinking about a year ahead. Like, what's that tactic that I can use that can drive exponential growth in future, right? Can I use network effects in some way? Um, can I leverage a tactic which will get me multiple construction firms in one go, rather than my sales guy knocking the doors and recruiting construction firms one by one? So that's how I'm thinking, and that's why we talked about that inorganic way of growth as well. Even to think about roll ups, even to think about acquisitions, even to think about how acquiring talent can have a big impact on outcome, you need non-linear thinking.
How do you build that non-linear thinking? Are you going on a walk and you're getting those ideas, or is it like books or content you consume?
Yeah. So generally, it's the experience that teaches you, Mayur. But if you want to short circuit the experience piece, I mean, take a shortcut. Then my advice there, Mayur, is basically be be open to learning. You know, force your mind to start thinking about those areas, and try to talk to people who have experienced in that way, so that you can truly internalize what they are saying. If you're just relying on browser to teach you, it's a much harder task. You let people to teach you those lessons.
I have a rapid fire round to wrap up the interview. You only
Sure.
have 5 seconds, less than 5 seconds to answer it, and you got to keep it super brief.
Sure, go for it.
What's your favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
A book which made a big impact in your life?
Blitzscaling by Reid Hoffman.
A city or country which is in your travel bucket list?
Greece.
Anything which you wish you would have done differently in life?
Interesting. So when I was young, I wished to be a cartoonist, and the family said you either can be an engineer or you can be a doctor. So,
Can't be
so,
more Indian.
so absolutely, like, I don't get much time to do caricature, but it's still my favorite thing to do.
Amazing. Your role model?
There are many of role models. Steve Jobs was one of my role model, and when he went away, I actually shed tears. That was the impact that Steve Jobs had on me. Right now, Reid Hoffman is definitely up there. Sundar Pichai is up there. As I said, my CEO Leslie Stretch, CEO of Medallia, is up there. So a lot of role models.
What would be the 3 words your best friend would describe you as?
I don't know about my best friend, but I'll share the most hilarious description that I've heard is somebody said Shreesha is a human LinkedIn. Basically, it shows the joy I have in connecting people and in getting people together.
It's a great compliment. What would be your piece of advice to 18-year-old thinking about the career and education?
Yeah. So the faster you can embrace first principle thinking, the faster you can understand exponential way of doing things, and faster you can understand that you are still human and you need to keep learning and improving. It's better.
One growth strategy you would recommend to a construction tech founder?
The thing network effects. Most of the construction founders I've met are thinking about marketing as a series of campaigns or series of channels, but think about network effects. That'll serve you better.
Anything, Shrisha, which we didn't cover in this interview and like to share that message on a closing note?
No, it's amazing how in a short span of time you were able to cover a gamut of topics. I think you've said it all, but my final words would be startup is an incredible tough journey. It's a journey that needs a lot of patience, courage. But if you stay at it, every startup can be made successful. Every startup. The degree of success may vary, but success is guaranteed if you just are persistent.
That got me pumped. Thanks a lot, Shrisha, for your time.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here, Mayur.